In this video, I'm going to talk about how my learning disability has affected my reading. Reading has always been a difficult task for me. Now, my learning disability is not dyslexia. A lot of people think it is, but it's not. I can read, I just can't read well. Basically, I can't read a sentence by itself, or a word by itself. I can read a sentence because that one word that I don't understand in there, if it's a sentence, I can work in my mind and figure out what that word is. But if it's by itself, I will never figure it out. So I'm going to sort of give you an example of how my mind works by reading a little bit of one of my favorite books, Paddington Bear. Well, it was one of my favorite books when I was a kid anyways. But this gives you an example. Paddington Bear. Now that by itself, when I was a kid, I would not be able to read. I would read bear, I'd know that. But Paddington, for me, it's primarily I will sound everything out. So if there's a letter in there that is not supposed to be there or anything, then it'll not make sense to me. So I'll get padding, paddington. So that's how I'd sound it. I'd do padding ton. That's what it would sound like to me. Padding ton bear. So in there are words. I do one day, mer, and mers, brown, were. I probably wouldn't know what were was back then because it's one of those sight words, and I'm terrible with sight words. Standing in Paddington station. They were waiting for their I have no idea what that U's doing in there. Yeah, why is there a G in daughter? Daughter. Daughter. That's what I would think. Judy, who was coming home from school. Now, school has an H in it, so it would sound like school to me. That was back when I was first learning how to read. Of course, the biggest way that I have overcome this, because now I can read this perfectly fine, it would be, one day, Mr. and Mrs. Brown were standing in Paddington Station. They were waiting for their daughter, Judy, who was coming home from school. Suddenly, Mr. Brown noticed something small and furry behind a pile of mailbags. Looking over there, he said to Mrs. Brown, "I'm sure I saw a bear." So how did I overcome my reading? Well, I have it completely. If I have a word by itself, I still can't read it. For example, names are the hardest thing for me. Especially if you name your somebody a weird name, like that sounds completely off. But even common names I sometimes cannot read. For example, Zach. Zach to me is pronounced Zach. I have actually called somebody Zach before off of a list because that's what it looked like. Now for all you Stargate fans out there, here's another one. This is actually the name of my cat, so it is spelled right. Here we go. This is Teal'c. If you know Stargate, you know who Teal'c is. Now, for me as a kid, I'd be like, Teal'c? What in the world does that mean? Teal'c? And in fact, when I go to the vet with my cat named Teal'c, everybody calls him TLC. I don't know why. So, words by themselves are still hard for me. In fact, there is a construction site down the street from me right now, and there is a word of the site, or the construction company, and I have driven past that thing like 20 times, and I still have no idea what that word says. It's got a K in it. It's like SK something. So it's really kind of challenging for me. But I have overcome it in other ways. And the secret to that is reading. It's something that a lot of people don't like to do, especially if they have a learning disability, because it is a struggle for them. But reading is important. The best way to go about it is finding books you like Paddington Bear, or another favorite of mine is Green Eggs and Ham. But the important thing is to actually focus on reading something you like. You'll have a lot of books that you read in school, but you don't really like the content. So what you want to do is find some top books that you actually are interested in and just start reading them. You might also want to try a book on tape and then actually have the book too, so you can follow along if you're first starting out, stuff like that. But what's important is to just keep reading. Find something that you like and keep reading. Also, reading out loud is also a good way to help, but of course, a lot of people with a learning disability are quite embarrassed to read aloud in class. I was too. That's why once you're diagnosed, your IEP, Independent Learning Plan, will probably say something along the line of no reading in class, if that's an issue for you. But over the years, I have been reading lots of books, and I give credit to this to my 8th grade learning disability teacher. She actually gave reading time each day to us, with a little reading nook, of course. And what she'd do is she'd have us sort of fill out a survey of what we were interested in at the beginning of the year, and she would find us each individual books that she thought that we'd like. So it's not just all of us reading the same Anne of Green Gables book that everybody else is reading. I was reading Holes, while somebody else was reading, I don't know, I think that was before Harry Potter, so it wasn't Harry Potter, but somebody else was reading some other book, I don't know. So over the years, I have gone from struggling to read Paddington Bear to books like this. I don't have the cover for this one. This is Silent. It's actually, I think, book 2 in a series. And also, I have read all of the Harry Potter books too. So, although it is something that I struggle with every day, and yeah, in the Harry Potter books, here's one of them, I will not be able to pronounce half the people's names, which makes the movie even more interesting, because then I actually know how the name is actually pronounced. But that is how I have compensated.